Good morning, everybody. Going to talk to you today about something that, first of all, is probably a little bit different in that if you don't believe the way that I believe, then this may not make sense to you. But I'm going to hope and pray that it does make sense and that you're able to get something from it. And today I want to talk to you about what it is to look for what God is doing in the midst of everything, not just bad situations, but also good situations, because God is always at work in our lives. And so I kind of want to just share with you a verse that is kind of one of my favorite verses. I'll probably do that each week that I either talk or write. But Romans 8:28 says that we know that God works to the good of those who love Him and are called according to His purpose. And so Laura and I believe that we are called according to God's purpose, and therefore we believe that God is working all things to our good. I don't know if you guys can hear that banging in the background, but Leland is definitely nailing something with a golf club. So do we need to get that figured out? Okay, we're back. That was indeed a plastic golf club smacking the walls, if you could hear that in the background. So anyway, back to what I was saying is that Laura and I both believe that we are called according to God's purpose, and because of that, God is always at work in our lives, and we believe that He's always at work in everyone's lives, but it will benefit those who are called according to His purpose. And we believe everybody can be called according to God's purpose. Anyway, all that to say this is that in the last year or so, there was a majority of that time where I wasn't really looking for what God was doing in the world, in our life, really anywhere. I was so upset and just frustrated with the way things had gone that I kind of just quit looking for what He was doing and didn't really give Him credit for the good or the bad. And it wasn't until I started to look for what God was doing in the midst of everything. See, I was in a place where I was miserable. I was in a place where I was frustrated, where I didn't feel like I was being who I was supposed to be, or doing what I was supposed to do, or even doing what I could do well. And but for whatever reason, when that changed and I didn't have anything, I just got even more frustrated and more angry. And then I started to realize that God was in the midst of doing something in our lives that was going to give us some opportunities that we may have never otherwise had the opportunity to do. And so, fast forward just a little over a year, and we've moved back to the place where our heart was settled to begin with. We've reconnected with an amazing group of friends and community down here. We have formed new relationships and began new opportunities to do ministry together, which is really where my heart's at more than anything else, is doing ministry. We found ourselves an incredible church with what we hope and pray will be a great church family. We've just now begun to get plugged in, but we feel very strongly that it is where God has us, and God is also providing us opportunities to do things that we would have never had the opportunity to do beforehand. He's just freed us up in so many ways because we began to look for what God was doing. We had been talking since the day we moved back to Georgia over 2 years ago about the day when we would come back to Florida. And it wasn't really until we even got down here that I stopped and thought about, wait a minute, like God was doing this the whole time. And so all that to say that God was working, and we just had to be aware and to look for what God was doing. Also, in the times that I was frustrated and miserable and didn't feel like I was in my place, when I look back now, I realized that God was working in all of those circumstances as well. See, it's easy to say that God's working in like a disastrous circumstance, or that God's working in a really like great circumstance. It's hard to look at just the monotonous and day-to-day mundane things and say, all right, God, what are you doing? But I want to tell you that God is doing something in your life, or can be doing something in your life if you just let Him. And sometimes you just got to kind of step back from your small little world, and you have to look at what God is doing. That is our precious little 2-year-old. Bye-bye, buddy. Who just brought his mom a half-eaten piece of banana. So, but sometimes you just have to step back from that mundane day to day and look for what God's doing. Maybe He's teaching you to be content. Maybe He's teaching you patience. Maybe He's teaching you what you don't want to do. Maybe He's teaching you what you do very well, but teaching you in a way that you realize, hey, I do this really well, but this isn't how I want to do it. Maybe you're sitting in a 9 to 5 in the corporate world, and God wants you stepping out of that zone sometime down the road and doing what you're doing now, but doing it for His glory and His kingdom. Maybe He wants something along those lines. I don't know. I can't tell you what God wants for you, but I can tell you, if you have questions about what it means to look for what God is doing, message us on this board. We would love to hear from you. We would love to hear how you feel like God is working in your life now, and maybe even if you feel like you're able to see what God is doing or what He's not doing, or we just want to hear from you. So anyway, hope you have a great day. Hope this video wasn't too long, and we look forward to seeing what you guys say on the posts. Thanks.